Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside Sam Quinn from CBSSports.com. Sam, the Boston Celtics still alive. We will get to that in a little bit because the Wolves and the Warriors just wrapped, and the Warriors no longer alive, Sam. That's it. The Wolves take care of them in 5 games. Just general impressions from this. I thought, the Wolves tossed the ball all over the building, but Ant kind of made up for it with a playoff career high 12 assists. Just on the whole, my whole takeaway was that Wolves offense, when you're like begging Brandon Pajemski to have a playoff career high 28, and since Steph Curry went down, Kuminga was probably your most consistent playoff scorer. That's a problem.
Well, yeah. Hey, Jimmy, if it's not too much trouble, how much are they paying you? I know Brad Botkin's been going nuts on this on CBSSports.com. I think I'm trying to wrap my head around the Jimmy Butler acquisition here because he was so good when they had Steph, and it just sort of feels like he's more of a gap filler than real playoff Jimmy at this point in his career, where you can get the one big game out of him. I think he had one huge game in this series, but generally he's kind of only suited right now for I'm going to get my 7-8 free throws every night, and I'm going to find a few layups here and there, and I'll make a couple jumpers, but I'm not going to score 40. This isn't the Bucks series in 21 or 22, whenever that was. I'm just going to, I have to function off of somebody. You can't run an offense through him anymore. And I found myself, quietly pretty impressed with Kuminga. I did not think that he had this in him, especially against a really good defense. I think he made himself some money back in this series, but, all he was really doing was scoring. I don't know that he was really impacting games in the ways that you would hope out of a fourth-year guy like him. So I just sort of feel like they got a little bit less out of everybody than they wanted. Pajemski was good tonight, but this is
Pajemski was not good in the series.
Yeah, this has not been a good series for him. And look, it shouldn't be, right? He was the 17th pick last year. I feel like they probably artificially raised expectations a little bit with all of that messaging that we think he's going to be a future All-Star. And I don't know, maybe not to make the easy comparison for a similar Western Conference team. Austin Reeves was further along than this in the second year, right? I feel like if there was an all-star in here, a real core player here, I might feel we should have seen him by now, right? I look at this roster and I think it just of course it makes no sense without Steph. It's built to suit Steph, but one of the lessons of these playoffs, I think, is it never hurts to have just one more bucket on your team. And I'm never the guy who says that, but I feel like we've seen a lot of offenses this postseason where you remove one guy from the equation and the whole Jenga tower falls.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there that you just went through. I mean, I think it's kind of a little funny and maybe just a touch unfair to be Jonathan Kuminga only scored for a team that needed points and also was DNP-CDing him right before that happened. So hey, you get whatever you can out of the guy. I'm not a Jonathan Kuminga guy. On this show, that's Bill who believes in him. I gave up on him a while ago, but to get anything out of him, let alone 26 points, I mean, fine. I think what you said about Jimmy is absolutely right. When they got Jimmy and we were all fawning over Jimmy because he changed the complexion of their defense and they were number 1 in defensive rating after they got Jimmy, and they were turning everybody over and scoring a bunch of points off of turnovers. And we were saying how much easier and the offense changed, the complexion of the offense changed because they couldn't just key on Steph. I think what we forgot was something that happened, or what Jimmy actually said once Steph went down, and Jimmy was man, I hope he comes back because he makes everything easier for us. And that's what we saw after Steph went down. Yeah, I'm with you, man. This is not Jimmy taking the Heat out of the play-in to the finals, scoring at will. I was on with Avery on HQ the other night, and we were talking about how tonight Jimmy had 17 points on 11 shots, roughly the same as his game 4 line. And Avery was that first number on his scoring needs to be a 3 if they have any shot. And he got half of that. So yeah, I mean, the second that Steph went out, you remembered, oh, right, this offense is cooked. They don't have anybody.
John, I got 2 Minnesota closeout games here. In the first one, Rudy Gobert scored 1 fewer point than Luka Doncic. In the second one, he scored as many points as Jimmy Butler. I mean, I don't know if we want to transition quite yet, but I was thinking about that a lot, where Rudy is just facing his enemies in this postseason and slaying them in these closeout games.
I mean, the closeout. The Wolves, look, off on their end, right? All 5 starters in double figures. Plus, you got 21 combined out of Naz and Dante DiVincenzo. And Dante has not shot the ball well. Last 2 games have been better, but the playoffs shooting the ball was not great. But taking care of the Lakers in 5 and the Warriors in 5, like, yeah, and Rudy, like, acquitting himself well. For me, the big one, and this is something that I wanted to touch on with you. You and I were on this program at the beginning of the season, absolutely crushing Julius Randle, and rightly so, rightly so. And something changed for him post All-Star break. That dude, like, stopped being a black hole on offense, stopped being like dribbling the air out of the ball, stopped being I'm only going to look for my shot, started distributing. Tonight he had another good game. Again, he's been excellent in the playoffs. He went for 29, 8 and 5. All of a sudden, Sam, like, Julius Randle isn't not only like a negative that you and I want to see like mothballed on the bench, but like, he works.
Yeah, his first postseason with the Knicks, he had a negative assist to turnover ratio. The second one, it was like basically even. It was 1. He's above 2 in this postseason, right? If you look at the shot selection, like his first All-Star year with the Knicks, he literally took more long twos than layups. It's just that they happened to all go in. The shot selection has gotten so much better, where it's all that like 5 to 10 foot range in the paint, where he's just bullying Draymond and getting these good looks that he wants. By the way, like, I came into this theory thinking, oh, it was cute against the Lakers, but they have no big men, whatever. Like, this isn't gonna matter. This isn't something that we can really learn from. Then he does it to Draymond, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is real. This is like an actual playoff caliber defense that he's really torching. So I'm not quite ready to like do a full mea culpa on Julius Randle yet, especially because the team they're about to play next presumably will be Oklahoma City. And I think that's a really dangerous matchup for him, just because they're so good at causing turnovers when you drive in traffic. So if he's going to try to do that stuff where he gets to his preferred spot on like the higher paint, I think there are going to be a lot of strips. I think he's going to lose the ball a fair bit. But for now, this is better in the playoffs than I ever thought Julius Randle was going to be. He's taking the right shots. He's making the right decisions. And he's not acting as though this team has to run fully through him. Like, he's been properly deferential, and I think everyone on that team feels like they're in the exact perfect role.
Yeah, they really do. They've been playing really great basketball over these first 2 rounds. I'm interested to see who they play. I think it's probably going to be Oklahoma City. I like how you just skipped right over Game 6 in Denver and eliminated Nikola Jokic, potentially forcing a Game 7 and like causing chaos. But that's okay. I like your optimism about this. Real quick, I just want to thank everybody who's joining us live on YouTube. No, it's late on the East Coast. I want to encourage everybody to hit that like button, leave us a comment. We might not be able to get to the comments because we've been having some technical difficulties, but you can also hit the subscribe button if you don't mind, and the little bell symbol. If you click on that, you'll get notified when we go live. Sam and I have been doing a lot of live shows after games wrap up, so you can come and join us for those. You want to talk about the potential matchup next, or do you want to just mothball the Warriors and send them off to Cancun?
No, because you're right. We do have another Thunder Nuggets game, and the way that series is gone, it's going to be a very fun one. So probably shouldn't get ahead of ourselves there. But I mean, I look at this Warriors offseason coming up, and fortunately, I think if this series had played out this way, but they had traded for Durant instead of Butler, I think you'd be really worried because it would have cost them everything. I think the advantage of having gotten Butler, among other things, is that he really didn't cost much, right? Where Wiggins was matching salary and they sent Kyle Anderson, and it was 1 first-round pick, but it was this year, so you're not encumbering the future. Like, you have some chips to go out and do some stuff. I'm sure they're going to call about Giannis. I just wrote about the Warriors and Giannis on CBSSports.com. I'm going to go ahead and guess that unless he really forces the issue, they're probably not going to get Giannis. But I think they have some avenues to improve here, and I'm curious what you think they need, right? Because, I mean, clearly what this series suggests is that they can't score without Steph on the floor, at least not well enough to win a series without him. So are you looking for another scorer? I think I'd be looking for, could you get a spacing 5 where, like, they had the idea with Quentin Post. It's just Quentin Post isn't good enough because he's Quentin Post, right? Like, I thought they might look into Miles Turner, but I think the Pacers have just been too good in the playoffs for him to feasibly move. So do you maybe revisit Vucevic? Do you really, like, look at somebody like that? Do you call on Al Horford now that the Celtics situation is kind of a mess?
Al Horford potentially. My biggest question for them is what they do with Jonathan Kuminga, because Steve Kerr pretty obviously decided that Jonathan Kuminga was not in their plans when Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph are healthy. And he said the spacing doesn't work. It's wonky with Jimmy and Draymond and Kuminga out there. Now, Maybe, I mean, I don't know. Jimmy had 17 points on 11 shots. Not enough. He just wasn't nearly aggressive enough. And he's not wrong about the spacing concerns there. But if you've decided, if you're Steve Kerr, that Jonathan Kuminga is not your guy, and like every time that Steve Kerr has been asked about it, or like by the eye test or by his rotations, all signs point to he is not a Jonathan Kuminga guy. So, like, what do you think that they can get from him? Do they automatically move on? I mean, because it
So
doesn't make much sense to just have him sitting there like collecting dust.
I think what this series showed me, it's something I've said a few times either on here or just elsewhere. It reminds me a little bit of Kelly Oubre when he was with the Warriors, where he just never figured it out within the context of playing with Steph. And playing with the Warriors when they have Steph, no other team plays like that, right? It's kind of hard to evaluate guys based on how they are with Steph because every other team plays normie ball. I think when the Warriors were forced to play normie ball, Kuminga looked a lot better. Like Kelly Oubre's looked a lot better than he did everywhere outside of Golden State. I think Kuminga is just the better version of that. Where if you just put him on a normal team and they say, like, we're going to let you cook a little bit, like, we're going to give you some room to explore the studio space, I don't know that he's ever going to live up to his physical potential. I think his decision making is still really, really not great. I think he has a lot more to give as this Timberwolves series showed than we thought beforehand. So I would think there will be a sign and trade market for him somewhere. Now,
I think so
sign and
too.
trades create all sorts of cap issues, right? If you acquire a player through sign and trade, you're hard capped at the first apron. If you send a player out through a sign and trade, you're hard capped at the second. Plus, there's some base year compensation issues that make matching salaries in one of those, like, it's pretty difficult. There are smart people running NBA teams. I think if somebody wants to acquire Jonathan Kuminga, they will be able to do it. So I think they'll explore. I think my thought is that they probably want to have a center who can shoot a little bit because I know Draymond is mostly going to play center in the playoffs. I think you want to have an option that you can fill in there so that he doesn't have to do it for quite as many minutes. And then you still don't compromise the spacing and like you can live defensively with that. So maybe it's Vucevic, maybe it's somebody in that vein, like somebody in the $15-20 million salary area. Like I think they need to find one more source of offense, but I don't
Yes.
think it can be somebody as simple as like, oh, we got Colin Sexton, we're gonna let him dribble his way to 16 points a game. It has to be somebody who can do it within the flow of their offense. So I think it has to be a shooter, and I think the area, the position on the floor that they need someone most is probably at center.
Yeah, tough to find a combination of those two things. You might have to piecemeal and patch it together. For the first time in Steve Kerr's era, 4 straight playoff losses for the Warriors. Just a rough way for them to go out. I don't know that. I mean, if Steph was there, I picked the Wolves in 7, and I definitely think it would have been a closer series. And who knows, the Warriors, there's if Steph doesn't get a hamstring injury, maybe he has a couple hot games and they do end up winning this. But instead, it's the Wolves going back to their second straight Western Conference Finals. They're a complete team. They're playing really well right now. And Anthony Edwards, yes, he had 7 turnovers tonight, but the playoff career high 12 assists. There's so many games that I can point to from the postseason, Sam, where his shot wasn't necessarily falling. Obviously, he changed his game this season, and he was shooting a ton of 3-pointers, made the most in the NBA this year. But in the postseason, it was encouraging to see him, when the shot wasn't falling, decide, oh, I'm going to get to the rack, or, oh, I'm going to be a distributor. And I just think that redounds to his benefit, to his credit, that he's really learned how to play playoff basketball. And now the Wolves are going back to the conference finals. Very impressive.
He's really on the Jason Tatum trajectory for me, I think, as far as learning how to be a playmaker step by step by step. Where I think even before the playoffs, I just kind of looked at it and I thought, this is the one hole in his game. He's not a good passer. I think the Lakers series, when they were really throwing a lot of help at him, he was very, very smart about like, look, I'm not making the Jokic passes. I'm not driving in such a way where I'm intentionally leveraging a defense to create a lane elsewhere. But he's gotten to the point now where he knows instinctively not only what the easy pass is, but when it makes sense to make it. And when the Wolves are hitting their shots like they did, tonight for a lot of, well, not a lot of this series, but parts of this series, like they really become almost unstoppable because of how much help Edwards really forces defenses to send. I look at that Minnesota offense, and I don't think it's stylistically similar, but I think it's built in kind of a similar way to the Pacers, where everybody on the team has some unique offensive gift, right?
That's
Where
interesting.
for DiVincenzo, it's getting open and it's the up ball movement and taking the threes. McDaniels, it's the cutting. Gobert, it's
Sure.
the lobs. Randall has his spot. Everybody on that team has one specific thing on offense that they're doing really well. And when Edwards is drawing as much help as he does, you can almost always put one of those guys in a position to take advantage of that. So they do remind me a little bit of the Pacers with their depth, but Edwards is so much better as a scorer than anybody that Indiana has. So look,
Yeah,
I'm going to pick whoever wins the other series in the next round. But I mean, look, this is a legitimate Western Conference Finals team.
yes, it's going to be a really fun Western Conference Finals, no matter who the Wolves end up facing, even though you've already written in Oklahoma City and written off Denver Nuggets. So everybody can find Sam Quinn to complain. If you're in Denver and you're a Nuggets fan, you can find him on Twitter, Sam Quinn CBS, for all your complaints. As producer Aaron points out, it's also the first time that the Warriors have lost in fewer than 6 games under Steve Kerr. So just like a really bad way for the Warriors to go into their offseason. We're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, if we can go to break, we'll see if we can. We've been having some technical difficulties. If we can't, I'll pause. We'll pick it back up. But on the other side, we're going to talk about the Knicks and the Celtics. Knicks could not close out the Celtics tonight in Boston. Celtics still alive. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. If you are joining us on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on the notifications by clicking the little bell symbol. You'll get notified when we go live. Sam and I go live after a lot of these playoff games. All right, so an earlier game tonight, Sam, the Knicks and the Celtics. The Celtics end up having a big third quarter, and they won this one very comfortably. Jaylen Brown stepped forward. You knew that they needed him to have a big game. He also, speaking of playoff career high in assists, he also had a playoff career high in assists at 26 points to go with 12 assists and 8 rebounds. Derek White, his shot was falling. All of their shots were falling, really. They had 45% from 3 tonight, but he had 34 points and 7 threes. Here's the big one. I don't know. Kristaps Porzingis, whatever like viral thing that he has rendered him DNP, can't play good basketball. And so they went away from him and brought in Luke Cornett, who almost had a double-double, Sam, but he had 7 blocks. Sam, in the rest of the playoffs leading into tonight, he had 5 blocks total, and all of a sudden, here comes the Green Cornet. So, I don't know. The Celtics are still alive, man.
We're going with the Green Cornet as the nickname. What happened to the Unicornet? That was my favorite.
I go with, so I think I told you, I lived in Boston for a while, and I have way too many friends from Boston who are just all the worst people, and they call him the Green Cornet.
I think that's a Knicks thing. I think in New York when he was here that he was the Unicornet, and I think that was ironically because Kristaps Porzingis was also on the team.
Sure.
So yeah, maybe that's where the divide comes. But he was incredible, and
he was.
I found myself thinking for a lot of this game, if Boston played with this much intention, if they were this like thoughtful and focused in the way they're executing, especially on offense, this series would be over by now, and they would have swept it.
This is what everybody in Boston is saying right now. They were like anger texting me about why didn't they play this way before Tatum got hurt.
It was the first game all series where I thought they really started to find ways to attack Mitchell Robinson as far as his like kind of limited mobility goes. He's clearly not 100%, but he's been such a factor in the series because he's just been able to dominate near the basket. I thought they did a good job of attacking him tonight. Derek White, we were texting fake Derek White trades like 2 hours before that game. And I guess we can't bury the Celtics quite yet. It's very frustrating from a Knicks perspective that I don't feel like I know what I'm going to get out of anybody on that team except for Brunson in any given game. And even Brunson tonight clearly got frustrated during that third quarter when all of the fouls were coming in.
Yeah, he fouled out with 7 minutes and change left.
Weren't all of the fouls or 5 of the fouls in the third quarter? Like most of them, I think the first 5 were in the third quarter. It felt like the team just kind of went into that game thinking Tatum's out and we're just going to waltz to a victory. And like, never underestimate the heart of the champion, man. Like the Celtics played like they have shown they're capable of playing for 2 years now. They just didn't do it for those first 4 games, and it doesn't really make much sense. But I guess better late than never. They're 2 wins away from maybe doing this.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Celtics played really well tonight. I mean, like, without Jason Tatum, maybe there's some sort of like rallying effect where they didn't want they're the defending champs, right? You don't want to go out on your home floor against the Knicks. The Knicks, where I don't know how much of the crowd you saw. You were down at, where were you tonight at MSG?
I was going to be at MSG. Long story short, I was not, but I was going to watch at MSG with my Knicks fans friends. It fell through at the last second.
Okay.
But
All right. So then you did see that a whole bunch of Knicks fans, because they do this, because they're like locusts, they go everywhere, and they like swarmed up to Boston and they took over a bunch of seats in the Garden in Boston. And I guess, like, you know, as the game went on, obviously they got the hint that they weren't going to win this game. But my whole point here is that if you're the Celtics, the last thing you want to do is lose as the defending champs on your home floor after Jason Tatum went down and watch a bunch of Knicks fans celebrate in your building. That would be disastrous. So I think that there could be some sort of like, you know, I don't tend to be a vibes guy. You tend to be more analytical and numbers based as well, but there's an energy there that you definitely don't want to fall prey to. At the very least, make them win on their own floor.
well, yeah, and the Celtics tend to be kind of a vibes-based team too, right? Where like they'll get up by 20 and they'll just kind of play lackadaisical basketball, and they didn't do that tonight. Like the entire 48 minutes, they played Celtics basketball. They were good at attacking mismatches, and they generated all of their open threes. And tonight they happened to make them, which they didn't in games 1 and 2. I think if they do go out in Game 6, they can at least hold their heads up high and say, like, we gave them a fight, right? Like once Tatum went out, I assumed Knicks they're just going to walk right over. So I actually am starting to get a little nervous as a New Yorker going into Game 6, because I swear, I don't know on any given night. OG has had 2 great games in this series, and he's had 2 total stinkers. With Towns,
100%.
it changes quarter to quarter with Towns, right?
Yep.
With Bridges, he was so good at the end of Games 1 and 2, and he was so instrumental offensively in Game 4. And tonight it's just a dud. And it's just, man, you kind of need, I was about to say you need the stars to align. You need the things that are slightly less than stars, because that's what these Knicks role players are, right? Like Mikal Bridges is not a star, even if they cost him as much as one. You need a little bit more consistency out of these guys. I would not feel good about going back to Boston for a Game 7, so
No.
I hope they get it done in Game 6. But kudos to the Celtics for not going down.
The Celtics did not go down. I mean, what you said is absolutely right about the inconsistency outside of Jalen Brunson. That applies to everybody. I mean, you got 24 points out of Josh Hart tonight, which, okay. Josh Hart had been doing a lot of the little things, but he's not exactly like an offensive juggernaut. And Mitchell Robinson, you needed minutes out of him tonight. Cat was fine, but OG and Bridges, you didn't get much out of. And there have been multiple moments in the playoffs. Thinking back to Game 1 where Bridges had the steal on Jalen Brunson, and then there was the fourth quarter of game, what was it, 3 or 2, where he was good offensively. No, it wasn't 3.
It was Game 2.
It was 2
where he was scoreless through 3 quarters, and I think had 14 in the fourth.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, because Brunson had the big third quarter, and then he followed with the big fourth quarter. Anyway, the whole point here is you're absolutely right about that. Tonight, including Jalen Brunson, who again fouled out, and my Knicks fan friends, I have a bunch of those as well. It's just a cesspool of my awful friends texting me things about complaining about their team, but they were complaining about the fouls, and I'm like, I don't know, like he fouled out with over 7 minutes left. It wasn't a good performance by him. He's been excellent. Jalen Brunson is not the problem. He's been actually the solution he wasn't tonight. Across the board, Sam, they had a bad shooting night. 36% from the floor is just not going to get it done, especially when the Celtics, remember back in Game 1, they shoot 63s and Joe Mazzulla was just stone-faced. Like, yeah, I'm okay with it. Maybe we take 5 or 10 different kinds of shots, but in terms of the shot selection, he was okay with it. That's because tonight, when they shoot almost 50 threes, they made 45%. They shot 52% from the floor. This is a team, we saw them be streaky at times. There's that 20-game chunk during the regular season where they were streaking. None of them could shoot and get the ball to fall. But then they corrected tonight without Tatum. So non-zero chance that they win at MSG.
Yeah, we talked a lot about shooting variance in Games 1 and 2 when they missed all the threes. The Knicks are actually a little bit more subject to shooting variance than I think we give them credit for.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't talk about it in quite that same way. because their shooting variance isn't on threes, it's on long twos,
Yeah.
especially Brunson and Bridges, where everything was going in game 4, and that's how they really took control of that game in the second half, where Brunson and Bridges were just making all of those mid-range jumpers. When those aren't falling, like, this isn't a team that's great at getting to the basket, 28th in three-point attempt rate. A lot of the fouls are just Mitchell Robinson hacks, so can't really trust the free throw rate. I would be a little bit concerned where those mid-range shots just weren't going in quite as much in game 5. And if you can't make them in game 6, you're going home for a game 7, right? We talked about this when the Knicks were the team trying to be the upset candidate. Boston's threes made them so susceptible to variance costing them games. Now it's kind of flipped where the Celtics are trying to be the team that, pulls off the upset. So suddenly taking 53s a game is a major weapon to them.
Yeah.
Like that, their variance is more important now.
Yeah, it really is. Let's wrap this thing up. But before we do, I'll put you on the spot here. Early line for game 6 is you want to guess, but do you know the line before I tell you?
I know the line.
You want to guess?
So Celtics were 4.5-point favorites tonight. I'm going to say Knicks 1.5.
Almost nailed it. 2. So which way are you going?
I'm going to take the Knicks just because this felt to me a little bit like we're not going down without a fight. We're going to have to show the heart of the champion, blah, blah, blah. Like, we aren't going down that way. I think a road win without Tatum, never say never, just given all the threes they take, but a road win without Tatum seems like a tall order. So I'm going to take the Knicks, but tonight didn't make me feel great about that.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Knicks too. Same. I did not feel great about. I don't feel great about it after what I saw from the Celtics, who really rallied, and in a weird way. Like, again, I just keep coming back to, like, Kristaps Porzingis is useless right now, and here comes Luke Cornett. Sure, absolutely. Should be a fun game 6 though on Friday. Everybody come and check us out. I'm sure that we'll be on afterwards. But for now, for Sam Quinn, go and check out all of his stuff on CBSSports.com. I'm John Gonzalez. Bill Reiter, our NBA insider, and I will be live on CBS Sports Network on Friday to preview Game 6 of Knicks and Celtics and maybe review what happens in Game 6 of Thunder and Denver. Come and join us at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. But for now, for